Happy 2022. This is the Monday, January 3rd, 2022 meeting of the Northampton Historical Commission. And as all of you know, we are meeting virtually again because of the provision that we can do this based on the COVID-19 measures that were adopted during the state of emergency that persist. And as everyone knows, the meeting is being recorded. We have a number of items on the agenda tonight. I wanted to just start by opening up to public comment. If there are any members of the public who are in attendance, and I see that there are some, that have anything that they would like to express or share with us, items that are not already on the agenda, this would be the time to do that. Just please, if you are one of those individuals, you could raise your hand and identify yourself and your address. And it looks like we don't have any takers on that, so we will move on. I have a very brief chair's report. In the new year, this is a little bit of an odd time for us to be meeting. So, and I know a lot of people have been enjoying the holidays, so there's not a lot that's happened. Harvey, welcome. We just got started, so we're moving on to the chair's report. Just a couple things. Steve had sent an email out before the holidays asking about a couple of items, and I wanted to just respond to those because I don't believe the information was circulated to the rest of the commission. Steve, you had asked about the National Register nomination that's in the works for Florence for the Abolitionist and Reform District, and as everybody knows, that is an item on the agenda, and I believe we have the consultants who are working on that nomination, as well as the multiple resource nomination tonight to present as part of the agenda. So we'll hear more about that then. And I'm sure that everyone got all of the updated information about that in Sarah's email prepping us for this meeting. So you're welcome to, peruse that. It's a lot of information, but it's fascinating. So we'll look forward to Steve and Catherine and Neil, who will be speaking later. Steve had also asked about the preservation restrictions that are being held by the commission, and we are going to be talking about that in February. So as preparation for the February meeting, Sarah will be sending that out with the meeting materials. And then the final item was about the preservation plan. So at the moment, I believe that the planning department is just updating the RFP or fine tuning the RFP. And we will hopefully be scheduling a subcommittee meeting in January to get working on that. And just to remind everyone, those individuals who volunteered to be on the subcommittee include Steve and Barbara and myself. And that's all I have for tonight. We do have a set of minutes that we need to approve. They're from July 26th. And I believe everyone in attendance tonight was present at the meeting, except for Steve, who at the time was not sworn in. And would anybody like to make a motion to approve these, and then we can discuss?
So moved.
Any second?
I'll second.
Okay. Did anyone have any comments on them?
They look good to me. From what I could remember way back then, but they looked good.
Okay. Great. So then I think, Sarah, we're ready to vote if there are no other comments.
All right. Martha?
Yes.
Barbara?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Steve?
Abstain.
Dylan?
Yes.
And Harvey?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
All right. So we'll move on to the public hearing, which is a request for a local historic district certificate of appropriateness pursuant to section 195 of the Northampton Code for proposed replacement of 30 windows at 330 Elm Street. That's map ID 31A-002. The applicant is Perry Cohen in collaboration with Pella Products. And I just want to remind everyone, you may recall that we did review an application for certificate of appropriateness for this property and the windows back in April. And we denied the certificate. It was appealed by the applicant and then the appeal was denied. This is a new application that reduces the number of windows to be replaced, trying to keep the work to the parts of the property that are not visible from the street. And I believe the applicant is here tonight. Am I right about that?
Yes,
Perry, great, thank you.
and Dan is here from Pella too.
Great, perfect, fantastic. So there was a lot of information, and I think what would be really helpful for us if you could kind of give us a summary of your thinking behind this, your reasoning for revising the original application, which is probably pretty evident, but and then we'll take what you have to say into consideration, and then we need to look at our design standards in relationship to what you're proposing. So
Sure.
it's all yours.
Okay, sure, I can get that started. So originally, when this project was proposed, it was handled by another person who did not handle this at the time appropriately, and he went forward and go ahead and he actually ordered the windows with no historical appropriateness, with removable grills that are room side. And I've been doing this with Pella for about 20 years now, and I know that that is not an acceptable way to do things. He just made an assumption. So that's why we went through the approval process before, looking for potentially a hardship. But we understand your stance. I've been dealing with historic commissions for years. This application here it's the same window with a different permanently affixed grill pattern, which is historically appropriate and accepted by most historic commissions that we deal with, even on federal levels. So it's a similar project, but it has a different product involved with regard to the grill appropriateness, where they're permanently fixed interior, permanently fixed exterior. We understand guidelines of repair versus replace. And in this particular situation, we have a lot of windows that are original to the home that a lot are beyond repair. And we may get into the discussion here where some of the windows are actually not historically appropriate whatsoever. And we're looking to bring that back up to a more historic appearance. Those particular windows are in the office, which I don't know when they were installed, clearly before the Historic Commission, or maybe they were just installed without permission. But they were poorly installed, and most of them do not work in Perry's office on the second floor. So we're just kind of looking to kind of revise this really from just an energy heating and cooling cost of this home. It's a big home, and Perry shared his energy costs with me, and they are double what some of his neighbors are. So that's why we're back here again, to look at historical appropriateness and get your approval and do our due diligence and get it done right the first time, or not the first time, but get it done right this time around.
Okay. Sarah, would it be possible for you to share the screen and just so everyone on the commission can understand exactly what's remaining, what windows are remaining and which ones are proposed for replacement? Would that be helpful to people? I mean, we've all probably looked at the materials, but I think together it'd be good to look at these.
Sure, and I could
It'd be
talk you
useful
through.
just to have them so we could refer to them, but that was really so helpful in the information we got before the meeting.
Yep, that was good.
Yeah, Martha, are you referring to that, the photograph with the X's and the circles?
Yes, exactly. Can you, do you have it? Because I have it.
I can, give me 1 second.
Okay. So while Sarah's pulling that up, I just wanted to remind everyone, we do have design standards for windows. They are in our design standards handbook, which looks like this, although I think online it looks a little different. I don't know if it would be helpful for me to, review those with everyone. Does everyone, were you able to look at those and understand what we're looking at? Or would you like me to recite those? They are also in Sarah's staff report. Any yeses?
Be helpful for me if you just review them quickly.
Okay, sure. So there are a number of parts of the design standards, I think, that relate to this project. And Sarah, I think, has done a great job of pulling those out for us in her report. First, that original or later windows, trim, and features should be retained and repaired, except in cases where they are beyond repair. And in such cases, replacements must be based on physical, photographic, or documentary evidence. Where the building has been altered to have several types of windows, proposed changes shall be consistent with either the predominant window pattern of the building or the original historic pattern. Except duplication, nothing should be different, including material of the window, window style, grid pattern, grid style, grid dimension, sash widths, lintel sills, glass treatment, meaning single pane, or frame and opening shutter hardware, surrounds, and all other details should be duplicated in the same configuration, dimension, style, and existing materials. Retention of original historic materials such as curved, leaded, or stained glass is mandatory. Retrofitting original window sashes with weather stripping and or insulated glass is encouraged. Glazing should be limited to the following: insulated glass, single glass with removable energy panels, divided light options, Munton's bars should be limited to the following: an authentic divided light, simulated divided light with spacer bar between insulating glass. The following are unacceptable options for divided lights: simulated divided light that's applied to the glass, grills between insulating glass, and removable grills. Wood-clad exteriors are preferred. Aluminum-clad exteriors are acceptable, provided the profile reasonably matches existing window muntins. Okay. So were you able to get that up?
I did. I had it up.
While I was reading, sorry.
Yeah, and so I could show it again if anyone wants to.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about those standards? Were they clear? I think that one thing that I appreciate is that the applicant and Pella have really paid attention to what's going on in front of the house versus around the sides and back. And obviously we're less concerned about the sides and back. We're always concerned, but the front is the part that we really have purview over.
If I may, just one thing, because last time we were here, folks asked if we could look into window repair, and we repeatedly called and couldn't get anyone to call us back or respond or even come out and give us an estimate. So I know that was a concern last time, and I have documents of 3 times that I tried to call them and repeatedly emailed. So that was just kind of not, we didn't hear back. We couldn't get an estimate for you. And we're, like Dan said, we're trying to upgrade the look of this house right now. Everything's peeling on those. We do have storms, but I think they look pretty bad. And so we're trying to kind of be in keeping with everything you're asking for and respecting that. And I mean, that's why I bought this home, is because it's beautiful and I want to retain it and bring it back up to where it was. and also try to do so in an environmentally sustainable way in terms of energy. I know we can't add solar much as I would like to. We have a slate roof. And so just trying to work within the limitations of trying to be as responsible a community member and a neighbor as I can, and also recognizing the reality of the costs that we're facing and trying to do our best.
Thank you. Sarah, can you pull those up, those images? Great. Fantastic. Okay. So Dan, do you want to just give us a little rundown on what's proposed for replacement? Obviously, the red X's are things that are staying.
So all the things in the red, they all have the storms on the exterior of them. The green circles, the one that is facing the street right there, it is kind of hidden by a bush, but it's also part of the kitchen, which is to the right of that, those back windows there. That particular window is pretty degraded. It doesn't get a lot of sun, so there's a lot of rot and moisture issues going on there. So that's why we kind of wanted to factor that one in along with the kitchen. And then the one upstairs on the second floor there is actually broken, both the storm window and it's in a bedroom. And that's a little bit of a concern because it's a bedroom and it's an egress window. But the storm really is inoperable. And yes, we could repair it, but it would be nice to just replace that one along with the two on the back side of that same bedroom. Here you can see the ones on the left-hand side, those were in the previous picture. That's that same elevation of the home. And the windows on the bottom there, those series of casement windows, those are more modern windows. Those are actually Pella windows now. I don't know at what point they were replaced. When they were replaced, we didn't do the installation, so I don't have any record of that. And then the ones above it are bedrooms. And the ones on the third floor, each one of those windows, it is right on a roof line. So the bottom part of the window and the sill is pretty deteriorated to the point where even repair would be beyond repair there. And the others are just on the back of the house. And then to the far right, those two last circles on the second floor, those are the office windows that I was referring to that are they're in bad shape. They're modern windows, but they were installed very poorly and a very poor quality. I don't even think any of those open actually.
They don't open, and those are fake. I don't know what you call it. It's applied like plastic.
Yeah, they're
the
plastic
divided thing
grills.
is not real.
So yeah, so what we would propose there is we would put that same permanently affixed grills on those windows back there to bring it up to a more historic look. This is the side of the house from Vernon Street. And obviously those are, the red X's there are clearly visible from the street. The green circle, that's the other side of the office up there with the windows that don't work. So. And I think, Sarah, I also, you might have gotten them late from Crystal, some pictures of the actual proposed window showing the grill interior and exterior, and a project that we actually did, a historical project in Greenfield that we did a couple of years ago using the exact same window with the City of Greenfield's historic guidelines.
I got that, but the pictures were corrupted and it was too
Oh.
late to ask for a new version by then.
Oh, that's too bad.
That is something that I was going to ask for because, you know, seeing the specs is not the same as seeing a window.
Right. I mean, it certainly is possible for me to share my screen, I believe.
Yeah, go ahead. Let me just make you a co-host.
Oh, I know why the photos were corrupted too. I apologize. I sent them from my phone.
So Dan, how many of the windows are being replaced are not original, would you say?
Let me get back to how many of the
30?
windows? are not original to the
Mhm.
home.
Yep.
So everything in the kitchen, so I believe there's 13 windows there, and then the ones in the office. It's the majority of the 30 windows. We're talking about probably in the neighborhood of 19 to 20 of them.
Okay, so
I-
2/3 are
Yeah,
newer. Okay, all right.
Yeah. but again, we would bring them back up to a historic guideline with that permanent grill.
Okay. Then one other question, sorry to dominate, I don't mean to. I'm gonna turn it over to everybody in just a second. One other question I had is, Sarah, is it possible for you to show one of the images of the windows that are being proposed? There's sketches from the Pella cut sheet. Do you have that?
Yes. Does it matter which one?
Does anyone have a preference of which window? I mean, they're all basically the same, material and grill application and so forth.
I think
So,
one of the double hungs might be most useful.
okay, can you get that, Sarah?
Yep.
Okay. And then we could just look at those, and then I'd like to open it up for everyone's questions. Okay. So Dan, if you could just talk us through this material, etc.
So these are our Architect Series traditional replacement double hung windows. The grill pattern you see is a permanently affixed grill both on the room side and the exterior. The exterior of the windows are aluminum clad in white, which is the same color as they are now. The screens are attached to the exterior. If need be, the surface it is a powder coat finish, but if need be, it is a paintable surface because that's come up before with historic commissions. The interior is a wood window. So it's a wood window all the way through, aluminum on the exterior for maintenance. And again, the permanently affixed grill is both inside and out.
Okay. Great, thank you. Okay, commissioners. Who
Can
would like
I
to
ask
start?
what-
with the
While you
question?
have this
Barbara?
here,
Yeah.
I wasn't sure what the glass, it was an insulating glass.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering, because I don't quite understand everything it says there. Is there any kind of tint to this glass, or it's a clear glass?
So
Because
there,
sometimes the insulated glass is it's a little below just a plain clear glass in terms of its transparency or its color.
yeah, that's a great question. So it is insulated glass. It does meet all building code standards. So it is a U factor of 0.3. So the lower the number, the higher the insulating properties. There is a low E coating on the glass, but it is a clear silver oxide coating on it. So it's very transparent. And I know exactly what you're talking about because some low E coatings can give a like almost a green hue to it, or a bluish hue when the sun hits it the right way. These particular windows, they'll have a very subtle tint, but it's not putting it next to a clear window, you would see a difference on its own. It's crystal clear for what its purposes are.
Is there anything in any, it might not be in this kind of insulated window, but in some of these insulated windows that over time they become cloudy? Is there a problem with these, or do these tend to do that?
So that's a good question. And what happens when you get that cloudiness that happens between the glass? That means the seal around the window has failed. And that cloudiness is actually calcium and lime deposits from moisture that's gotten in there, where the moisture has been evaporated, but the calcium and lime has stayed behind. And for these particular windows, that would be covered for a lifetime under Perry's warranty. So if it does become cloudy, it can easily be replaced. It can't be cleaned or fixed, but it can be replaced.
Barbara, anything else, Barbara? Any other
I
question?
think I had one other question. Oh, well, you asked my one about how many windows were going to be replaced are not original to the house. And the other thing I was wondering was, I think it said something about that the grill was going to be 7/8 of an inch. And is that true in all the windows? Because I think that's, according to our standards, that's we don't want something wider than that, because it's not necessarily appropriate to the house if it's wide, to an historic house, to an older house if it's wider. So I didn't look at every single spec to see if that was the width
That's actually a really, really good detail. Good question. There are two different grill profiles. One is what's called a putty glazed, and it's a very simple 5/8, and the other ones are have a historic OG profile to them, which is the ones we're using, and they are in fact 7/8, which is what Perry has right now. So we have that option of that 5/8 or 7/8, but because of what's in the home now, we've opted for the 7/8, which is a better match.
Okay,
I can actually show you that too if you want me to share the screen. I have the
okay,
pictures.
great.
I apologize. It is an email. I don't actually have the full photos because they're on my phone. So you should see this screen now. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can see it.
So this is the exterior of the window, and this is the aluminum, and you can see that subtle OG profile right there. These are permanently affixed to the windows. So this would be the exterior. That's the aluminum. That's just a shipping bracket here. This is a brand new window. We just opened it in our shop. And then it carries that same profile on the edge of the grill, same profile on the edge of the window, which is what it's a historic OG profile. OGEE is the spelling of that. And then another, just a close-up picture of that profile. So you can see that 7/8, what that looks like from the exterior of the home. Keep in mind, most of the windows on the front of the house have a storm window on them right now. And for what it's worth, that storm window makes it look like it's a grill between the glass or it's a room side removable. We will not use any, we're gonna get rid of all the storms on the windows that we're proposing to replace. Okay. For room side, and historic purposes there, you can see the lock. That is the room side grill. Again, carries the same profile, difference being that this is a wood interior. So it's a wood grill. I have two pictures of that. And you can see that, again, that OG profile right there. And then the final picture that I wanted to share is, oh, I guess I got one more. There's that OG again. The final picture I wanted to share would be a completed project that we recently did in City of Greenfield. And it's not the best picture, I apologize, but this is right on the corner of Main Street and Bank Row. And probably about 5 years ago, Greenfield did a major renovation of downtown. And this is the exact window that we put in their building here. And you can see we had to match the grill profile. So this has always bothered me that it's 12/12 on top and 6/6 on the bottom, but that's what they asked for. We didn't make a mistake. But you can see without that storm window, how that grill profile really stands out and does make it look like a nice historic application. So.
Great, thank you. Barbara, did you have more questions?
No, I think that's it for now.
Okay. Craig, you're next.
Yes, thank you so much for the, I have Pella Architectural Series windows on my house. I know the difference.
Thank you.
And
Me too.
you
What it's
know, I'll
worth.
mention
Me
that
too, right behind me.
the heavy tint on certain windows, I'm a realtor.
Mhm.
The heavy tint on some glass windows, we call that the cool hand Luke effect. From the cool hand Luke, where the sunglasses of the guards look like the modern efficient windows of today. Why is it that, maybe I've got this wrong, why is it that the entire front facade would not have Pella Architectural Series windows?
Honestly, we would love to do that. That's what we originally did, but because of the guidelines of the historic commission and what they said, repair was the option to go with. So this time around, we've opted to just kind of leave that for now. And you know, who knows? We would love to replace them all, and if we can get approval for the whole house, we're prepared to do and complete the whole house. based on the guidelines, but our understanding was that they needed to be repaired versus replaced. And as far as your question about the tint, we did have a glass that was called low E sun defense or dual low E sun defense, and very heavy tint, especially in the winter. It looked like a purple hue on your glass from the hours of like 1:30 to 3:30 in the afternoon, where the sunlight actually bent that spectrum of light, that blue spectrum. So it made like a hazy, yeah, we don't make that glass anymore.
Thank you for your efforts.
Okay, anybody else? Dylan, Steve, any questions? Steve, Dylan shaking his head. You're muted, Steve.
I don't have any questions at this time.
Okay. Harvey, how about you?
Good, thanks.
Okay. Okay, all of my questions were answered by others. So at this point, I think we're ready to entertain a motion. Someone would like to do that?
Make a motion that we accept these proposals as presented tonight.
So that would be to award a certificate of appropriateness.
That would be correct.
Okay. Would
I'll
anyone like?
second that.
Okay, Jonathan. Okay, any more discussion or questions? No, okay. Then Sarah, I believe we are ready to vote.
All right, so roll call. Martha,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Dylan,
Yes.
and Harvey.
Yes.
All right, unanimous.
And again, thank you both Dan and Perry for your attention to this. It was, we, again, appreciate your, scrutiny of it and thoughtful consideration of it and very good proposals. So, and presentation. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Okay,
Yes,
All right.
thank you.
thanks.
Take care. Have a great night.
Good night. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the proposed women's suffrage sign. And Sarah, did we receive any information about this ahead of the meeting? Did I miss it?
We did not. So
Okay.
this is a group, and there should be at least one or two people here to speak to it, but they're proposing to install a women's suffrage monument in the area of the Sojourner Truth statue. And before DPW goes to City Council to accept this as a gift to the city, they just wanted the Historical Commission's take on it.
Okay, so do we need to approve, comment, vote? What action do we need to take?
A formal comment to the Department of Public Works.
Formal comment. Okay, sounds great. So I'm excited to see what you have in the works. And is there someone here to represent the group?
Yes,
Carol Reinhardt?
yes.
Thank you.
I am co-chair with Marcus Ware of the Sojourner Truth Memorial Committee. And I'm going to ask a couple of other people to speak. So in interest of your time, I'll be fairly brief. And what I would just want to say is that I'll state the obvious, and that is that the park and the statue in Florence Center has been there for 20 years. And summer, spring, fall, winter, anytime I'm going near the statue, there are people visiting and enjoying the opportunity to be in that beautiful space. And so I'm going to invite one of the founders who began with the development of this statue well before 20 years ago this May, to say a couple of words about our committee and the work that we do to preserve the Sojourner Truth legacy. And then I'm going to ask Wendy Sinton, who has been a part of this committee over many years and has also been a really important leader of tours and historian of Sojourner Truth, to just say a couple of words about how we got started on an application for a grant to install this historical marker with the Pomeroy Foundation. And then I will ask Freddie Kay, who's the person who's worked with Suffrage 100, the Women's Vote program here in Massachusetts. She picked up where we left off, and after putting the application in 2 years ago, and we've just recently heard from her that the hard work that they've engaged in has paid off, and we're now ready to ask for your support in installing this historical marker. So first of all, I want to ask Reynolds Winslow to say a few things about our committee and the work of the Sojourner Truth Memorial.
Thank you, Carol. My name is Reynolds Winslow. I'm not the unknown host anymore. I can't change that on this machine. But anyway, I have been one of the charter members of this group, so I'm leading up to 20 years in our opportunity here to showcase an iconic woman of American history, an abolitionist, and a person who just roamed the streets from New York to Connecticut to Florence, has bought a home in Florence. And so the opportunity for showcasing this American abolitionist, women's suffrage person is kind of unusual. And I have taken on her as one of my idols and one of my persons who continues to educate me, as we will talk about the opportunity for scholarships for students and tours that stimulate thinking and progress for students in the area. And I think I'll stop there because I could go on for many more minutes. I won't do that.
We all can and frequently do. I just want to make a point that it's really accommodating of Lisa to provide an illustration for our conversation. I see that her frame on the Zoom screen is a picture of Sojourner Truth, the statue, which we always love to see. So I wanted to ask Wendy to just say a few things about how she got this gleam in her eye about pursuing this program to get us this historical marker. Thanks, Wendy.
Hi, Wendy Sinton. I live in Florence. So how did this start? It started with somebody at Historic Northampton alerted a couple of us on the committee to the Pomeroy Foundation's work in putting up historic markers. And they said something to the effect of, gee, it would be great to get that recognition, national recognition at the Sojourner Truth statue. And so here's, look up Pomeroy Foundation and see if you think you can do this. So I did, and found there an application, and I found that they were working on, it was just at the beginning of their work, I believe, on honoring women in the fight for equal rights and voting rights. So the committee and I filled out an application to them and started the process of how do we work on getting a marker. About 2 or 3 months after that, COVID came along and everything stopped. So this fall, Freddie Kay reached out to me and I believe another person's name on the original application and said that she was now the Massachusetts contact for the Pomeroy Foundation and that she would like to help us finish that application. So there was a little start, a big stop. And now we feel that with Freddie Kay's help, we could finish this process And what Pomeroy would give us in the city really would be a very nice historic marker that would be placed up at the statue on one of the two prominent roads, so that it would be something, you know, when you're driving around and you see a historic marker on the road, it might bring you to stop and take a look at what the history is. We think it's a very unusual and important opportunity to speak to Sojourner Truth's legacy, working for equality. We think it also honors her place and the time, the 13 years she spent in Florence. And I think that's all I need to say. Thank you.
I just want to add that I took a look at the website for the Pomeroy Foundation to look at where the map shows that their markers are placed. And it really is a nice opportunity to be part of a nationwide picture of that. People who are interested in this will be able to look on the website and say, oh, we're going to be in Massachusetts, we'll come to Northampton. This is one of the spots. And Freddie Kay has been really active in doing this kind of work. And as Wendy said, the Pomeroy Foundation reached out to her, and as one who's done the lion's share of the detail work on our behalf in the last year, I'm going to ask Freddie to give you more of the details about what we have in mind. And I think you've got some visual aids to use so that you can see what this will look like.
Thank you so much. Hi, I'm Freddie Kay. Thank you, Carol, and all of you. I'm the founder and president of Suffrage 100 MA. I should put that in the chat. It's a statewide nonprofit. We've been around for 11 years to commemorate the 100th anniversary of women obtaining the vote, recognizing the importance of telling the story of people of color and women who were blocked from voting by other laws after the 19th Amendment, et cetera. And that would be African Americans with Jim Crow laws in the South, Native Americans who were not considered citizens under the law, and Asian Americans as well. So all of those stories about voting are very important to us that we like to tell. So we do have a website that I hope you'll check out. And one of the things I've been doing for the past several years is I'm the state coordinator, I think they call us, for Massachusetts, to the National Votes for Women Trail. So there are a couple of organizations involved in this. So it's called the National Votes for Women's Trail, which is this effort nationwide to identify sites where suffrage activities, suffragists were active. And as Carol says, these are on the website. There are kind of two aspects to this project. One is the digital aspect. So people by phone will be able to find these sites as they drive throughout the country. And the other is this marker project. And that is something where the National Votes for Women Trail has been working with the Pomeroy Foundation on suffrage markers. So as Wendy indicated, the Pomeroy Foundation has been around for a long time, and I've learned today actually about all their activities in Northampton that have to do with, I think his name is William Pomeroy's great-great-great-great-grandfathers and all kinds of people who have lots of connections to Northampton, actually. So that's how I think Wendy may have heard about this, potentially not knowing necessarily that the Pomeroy Foundation had just decided, I think as she was indicating, to create a suffrage marker program. And if you're on their website, the Pomeroy Foundation, you would see that they have many marker projects throughout the country. And this is one project that they put together for the 100th anniversary in 2020 of the centennial of the 19th Amendment. And they have donated, the Pomeroy Foundation is donating 5 markers per state. And those markers cost about $5,000 each. The receiving entity, so this is one of 5 for Massachusetts. And I don't know if it's possible for me to screen share anything? Is it possible to enable that?
Yeah, you should be able to do that.
Okay, great, thank you. I'll give you an example of one. Let me, so I have a few things to share with you that may be of interest, I hope. This is a picture of, I know the marker's a little bit hard to see in the background, but it says Votes for Women, and this is in Chicago for Ida B. Wells. And in the front, we have Ida B. Wells' great-great-granddaughter, Michelle Duster, who recently wrote a book about Ida B. Wells, and she's a writer and author and civil rights activist, et cetera. And you'll see this says the Institute of Technology. It was near a school. Sorry, I'm not going to be great at how to change the size here. Oh, my bad, sorry. That's a picture of the sign so you can get some idea of the height. And what this was an unveiling event. And I do want to mention that these are very exciting and they've been happening around the country where they've had dignitaries come and people speak and unveil and get some really good press coverage. And it's a wonderful opportunity to draw attention to Sojourner Truth, frankly, and not only this marker, but the statue and everything about her. Also, you cannot see it on this marker, but I believe it's on the back. There's a QR code. So there's a way that you can just hold your phone up to the marker and will be connected to the website for more information, both about Sojourner Truth and all of this marker project throughout the country. So that was one piece that I did want to share with you and to give you some idea of height and size. They're very heavy. They're on a pole, which you can't see behind this gentleman, but they're on a pole kind of just holding it up. And what Pomeroy Foundation will do is they donate the marker, they send the marker, and then the receiving entity has to commit, frankly, to installing it, to receiving it and installing it. In this case, as I understand it, it would be the city of Northampton would receive the marker, be the owner of it, and would install it through the Department of Public Works, install it and, quote, maintain it. And as you can see, I think that's relatively minimal. I guess a wipe off every now and then might be good since it's white, but it should be, a very, very long lasting marker with little need for maintenance. So that's a little bit of the background. Let me just check my list for ideas of what I wanted to tell you about the 4 other Massachusetts markers that are coming along. One is in Salem, Massachusetts for the Remond family, an African-American family up in Salem who were extremely active with several children who were very active in the movement, including Sarah and Charles and others. Sarah E. Wall in Worcester, Massachusetts, suffragist who refused to pay her taxes on property without the vote. Anne Page in Danvers, another active suffragist, and Mariah Baldwin in Cambridge, Massachusetts, a woman who was a teacher, became actually a master of her school, an African-American woman who was the master of a school of all white students. And she was well-renowned, her famous student with E.E. Cummings, who was very thrilled with her and talked a lot about her influence on him. So those are the 4 other markers. We have others in the work for Boston for many people, and we're not going to be able to get to the finish line, frankly. Their deadline now is January 31. It's a hard stop. And what they need to receive from the city of Northampton is an agreement that I have that I could show, but it basically says the city of Northampton agrees to receive the marker. And so let me just see what else I can.
Brittany, I think this is really great information. And I think what we want to do as a commission is to be supportive of this if commissioners agree. And what I think, unless we need more information, this has been fantastic background. It really, it's very inspiring. And I would want any commissioners to have any questions or comments to express them, and then we'll we will form a, an opinion or a statement of support for you, or yeah, otherwise, but probably support. Anybody have any comments that they'd like to make? Nobody?
I'd like the statement of support to be very strong.
Mm-hmm. And how would you propose that, Jonathan?
How do you mean, how do I propose it? I just did.
Oh, I see. Okay. Oh, I see. I see. I thought you meant the language being strong. You're saying you would voice strong support. Got it. Okay. Anybody else?
Would the Historical Commission be interested in co-sponsoring the ordinance to accept the gift along with the Department of Public Works?
How do people feel about that?
If that would be helpful, I can revise my motion.
Yeah, that
Sure.
sounds like a good idea to me. And I can say that the Pomeroy Foundation is a really great organization, because they've supported Historic Northampton in a number of projects. They have given us a number of grants, and I believe that they paid for the a Pomeroy Terrace district, or a Pomeroy Terrace sign that was put up that Historic Northampton was involved with as well. So they really do great things and enable things to happen. So I would strongly support it, and I like the idea of co-sponsoring that ordinance that Sarah suggested.
Great. Anybody else? I do just have one comment. So I know the designer of this memorial is a colleague, Nancy Denig, and I believe she's still in the area. Last I knew she was. And I would really strongly urge your committee to reach out to her to get some input on the precise placement of this. I know it seems just like a vertical object, but as a designer myself, it's very important, the location of these. And I think just because she's still around, and I know she cares very much about it, and also the whole subject of suffrage and abolition, it would be great to just get her input. So I'd recommend that. Okay. Well, thank you. So let's see, Sarah, how do we do this? Do we need to take, we don't need to take a vote. We just need to request that we be a co-sponsor of this and voice our strong support for it.
Yep, that would be great. And I can connect with the Department of Public Works also about the placement of the sign and checking.
Great, perfect. Great. Yeah, and if you need Nancy's contact information, please, I'll give it to you.
And what would be the timeline for production and installation of such a sign? I know you said January 31st is when the maybe the request has to be in, or all the paperwork or whatever, but what would be the timeline for installation?
I can try to answer that. So, right, the paperwork, all of the approvals have to be received by Pomeroy no later than January 31st, and we don't want to cut it too close, honestly. So this is wonderful. And then production takes many weeks, and frankly, the bottom line is I think we'd be looking at the availability for installation in the spring, when the ground is softer. And I think there have been conversations, maybe Diane Liebert mentioned others, about, finding an appropriate date around to do this in the spring that would make sense for the Sojourner Truth Suffrage Committee and the town to come up with some appropriate date. But it does take, it's many weeks of production. It might be 12 weeks. It takes a while. So it's kind of perfect timing, because that would be through the winter months.
Okay, perfect. Any other questions? Okay, I think we can move on from this, but thank you all so much for your presentation. It was
so much.
Very educational, inspiring, and we'll be looking to see a little addition to the lovely monument that's so prominent up in Florence that we all love. Thanks.
Can I just ask a procedural question? And maybe Sarah would know the answer. So with your support, which we so appreciate, if I can say on behalf of Carol and the committee, then Sarah, the next step is city council approval?
It would be, and I believe, but I'm not entirely sure that they'll be meeting this coming Thursday. But Donna Lascalia at the Department of Public Works will take it from here. if it's too late for that council agenda, she can request 2 readings at the following council meeting.
Okay, thank you so much.
Great,
Thank you
Thanks,
very
thanks
much.
so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
I'm going to rearrange the next 2 items on the agenda because we have Florence in mind at the moment and the abolitionist movement in the moment in mind. And we have both Catherine Grover and Nils Larson here, who are the consultants that are working on the nominations for that area. And Steve Strymer also, I believe, is here too. If you're looking around my pictured screen here. Are here to give us an update, and I think it would be appropriate to follow the last presentation with that if the presenters are ready. And those of you who were here for the monument sign item on the agenda, you're welcome to stay and listen to this.
Hello, everybody. Good,
Hi, Steve.
good to see you.
Happy New
in
Year.
this new way. Neil and Catherine thought it'd be good for me to just give a little orientation, and I'll make it very little because I want to have you ask them as many questions as you need from them. And for those people who aren't aware of how this all developed, they were key in the development of this project from the very beginning, starting, I believe, and I'll probably get some dates wrong, 2004 and 2009, to put both the Dorsey Jones House on the National Register of Historic Places and the Ross Homestead, the Hill Ross Farm. Both nominations were funded by the Massachusetts Historical Commission as in representatives, in a sense, of the Underground Railroad in all of Massachusetts, especially the Dorsey Jones House, which was a very modest house. And Catherine and Neil went around the state and picked two houses to represent Massachusetts on the Underground Railroad context that Catherine prepared for all historical commissions in Massachusetts to help them study the Underground Railroad in their towns. So that's, in terms of this kind of thing, that's where it all started. I won't go even farther back, but Christopher Clark's book and on the communitarian moment and this probably third round of interest in Florence history has been quite stunning, with the Sojourner statue leading the way, which we're very excited to work with. I didn't know about this plaque until tonight, or not plaque, but I guess it's a monument. We'll see. So unless you have any questions for me, I'd rather turn it over a bit to Neil first to, if you have questions about the extent of the district and the logic behind the contours of the district. And then Catherine probably will give more on because it really was her idea, which I welcomed a lot, was to write this context for all of Northampton for this period. Because I'll just put it out there, without understanding what happened in Florence through where things stood in Northampton, you really don't get the full picture. And you get somewhat of a skewed notion of just how Garrisonian Florence might have been. And it really opens the picture to the other side of abolition, which Northampton is uniquely positioned to be able to interpret for all of the Northeast what was going on in the 1840s. So that's it. If you have anything for me, fine, but I'm going to turn it over. Is that all right, Catherine, to Neil first?
I just want to make a quick comment. I was very, very impressed with the documentation that was sent out. It was extraordinarily well done.
Good, thank you.
Neil, before you start, I'm not sure that all the commissioners are familiar in any depth with the National Register process. And we have two connected, I guess, sets of information. One is the district, the national district nomination, and then there's the multiple property listing. Could you explain those to us?
Sure. As Steve mentioned, we were involved with the history in Florence. We've been involved in many years in working with Steve to develop a historic district in Florence. And as you probably know, he and his organization have done a lot to document many historic properties associated with the abolition movement and with African Americans in Florence. And and also, as he said, it was really an outgrowth of our massaging this project to get it up and going. That other properties, other people were documented in Northampton in general, which led to the development of this context statement that Catherine developed. In any event, we're proposing a historic district in Florence. The boundaries are essentially defined by the people that have been identified as significant in this context, involving the industry along the river there and the housing that grew up around it. So in terms of developing a National Register nomination for the property, we've worked on and off with the Massachusetts Historical Commission, and they're very much aware of what we're up to. We've submitted a proposal essentially to them for a historic district with the documentation that you have seen, and are essentially waiting for their response in terms of further justifying and refining boundaries and other kinds of things that relate to the National Register nomination. But that is hopefully that will proceed at some point over the coming year, and then be refined and developed into a finished document. Is there anything else about the National Register itself that people would want to know? Or
Well, then the multiple property, the context. How do you see that fitting in, other than setting a context for the district?
Well, it turns out that the district will be one property within this broader context. Within that multiple property, what do they call it, multiple property documentation form, following the context that Catherine created, we now have a list of properties that would appear to be eligible under that context. And the Florence Historic District it's the only district, at least at the moment. All the other ones are associated with individuals, but that's part of, and hopefully that context will provide the basis for the historic district. So the two are linked, but the district is a more specific kind of document coming out of it.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Neil before we go on?
I don't really have questions. I just want to second what Jonathan said about how unbelievable these documents are. I'm wondering if information like this is then, or if there are any plans to then make it available somehow, either through Forbes Library or the Ruggles Center or Historic Northampton, just so this documentation, the stories of these people, where these houses are, is available in another way other than looking up say on the Massachusetts historic inventory sheets or things like that. And that was one question. But the other one was, and it's a lot to absorb in one reading. And so I would have to really go back and more carefully examine it. But I know that it's probably not pertinent to setting up the stage for an historic district or the Form A. But does it ever include buildings that were significant that have disappeared that you can document were there, say the Erasmus Hopkins house, just to, or to add it to this document once it's made available in a different place so that people know what was lost. But in terms of making the case for the district, it might be useful to say, these are significant places we've lost. So if we have a district, maybe it adds another layer of protection or another layer of thought to preserve the buildings that are important, that are contributing to the district. And I know that the Erasmus Hopkins house isn't really part of the district, but it's still part of the bigger story. So those are my two sort of questions. It was a house on King Street in Northampton.
Oh, well, in terms of the district, lost properties or altered properties have been included, and they're kind of handled obliquely. The National Register likes to deal with real things, not lost things in a physical way. As far as an individual property in Northampton, there could be other approaches to it. But yeah, once a building's gone, it's a difficult approach to the National Register, unless there's archaeological significance. We're not really talking about that in this context.
Right. No, I understand.
But yeah, and thanks to Steve, his persistence, we have included a number of sites that now have other buildings on them that relate to the theme.
Anything leap to mind, Catherine?
I should let Catherine talk about it a little bit more, but to your question about other uses for this information, I think these narratives are prime candidates for some other kind of presentation, publication, whatever, taken out of these forms and put into publishable condition.
Yeah,
I have to admit that's a goal of mine.
Right. It seems to me that they can be woven together pretty effectively, especially given that the multiple property documentation form includes a lot of, because the Florence district is part of it, a lot of that information is there already.
Right.
But still, it could be melded into a more sort of less National Register-y narrative that might work well for the general reader who's interested in local history. But aside from that, the Florence is a pretty interesting place in my view, just because it's such a, and I think I hope I have made the case for that in the National Register form, but there aren't many villages of its size that evince such a sort of long-standing commitment to racial equity. It just doesn't happen. Even among communitarian organizations, it didn't happen. And for that alone, it's pretty remarkable. But the interweaving of other stories, for example, the silk manufacture, and in particular, the sugar beet stuff, is a pretty interesting facet. And both Northampton and Florence have the ability to tell a pretty broad story about anti-slavery and abolition, and how many gradations there were in political feeling and moral feeling about those movements. But I'm ready to, I didn't prepare anything, and I'm happy to answer any questions anybody might.
Can I make the question a bit more specific? If somebody hears that we've been discussing this and wants to read the documentation that board members have received, and they go to the Lilly or to the Forbes Library, would they even know? Would they know where to direct them, or how would one respond to them?
There would have to be some kind of promotion of the material. But let me just say, you've essentially been presented with a draft document that we're waiting to formalize with MHC, and I would advise that it not be put out for general consumption in various repositories until we get through that process. We have a kind of final state-sanctioned document.
Right.
Fair enough.
Dylan, do you want to weigh
I mean,
in on
in
that?
the interim,
Excuse me.
go ahead.
I was just asking Dylan if he wanted to weigh in on it since he's a Forbes representative.
No, I would just echo what Barbara and Jonathan have both said. I mean, if it is put in a presentable, officially sanctioned form, the value of this as a local history librarian to be able to put in the public's hands it's immeasurable. I mean, the amount of documentation here, the collective scholarship of years and years of scholarship that have gone into this it's really overwhelming to see it all in one place, not just to read it, but also to think of all the years of work that have got us to this place. So just thank you. And Forbes would obviously be very happy to utilize this whenever it's ready and in the form that it can best be presented.
And we're cultivating links with Lilly Library as well. So they have a history room there, and one of their workers is now a volunteer at the Ruggles Center Library, which is great. So that should come naturally. And I'm a printer, so I mean, this is if I could ever publish something by Catherine Grover, I would just be delighted, and to think of the images, which are some of them are so great. Both the ones Neil and his photographer took, he took some great pictures. But the historical pictures next to the people you're talking about to flesh out the story. I mean, we're looking at a 250 page book about all of this. If in the end, if that's what people want, it can come out in many contexts, slideshows, presentations, on the website, interactive. You could do an interactive thing like Historic Northampton did with the Witches Project. But it was an honor, is an honor to be working with these two, because boy, we've had some good celebrations after getting done with this. I hope we can have one when this is finished. And Betsy, people should understand, they're sticklers there, but Betsy was on the board of the Massachusetts Underground Railroad Network. I mean, she traveled to go to our meetings to talk about the Underground Railroad. And she, I think, we'll see how much of an ally she can be. But
you retired, Steve.
On that note, yes, I just got a message from her. So that everyone on the commission, this is Betsy Friedberg. She's been the National Register Director at MHC for as long as I can remember. And also her associate, Phil Bergen, also worked on the register for a long time, and they both have retired. Betsy just retired on the 31st of December. So that was going to be one of my questions, Niels, is whether that the new director, whom I haven't met, will be as supportive as Betsy. And we'll hope so, right?
We'll hope so.
Do we know who the new director is?
Yeah, it's Ben
Haley.
Haley, who's been working there since Phil retired.
That could be to our advantage because the writing and the documentation is so good. If these people don't really have it, the discovery of it for people out in the East might be a real find in a sense, you know, that we might get new blood excitement rather than the 20-year long excitement we've had since the Underground Railroad network started way back when.
You can only hope.
Yep.
So Neil and Kathy, what is your process? Have you submitted a draft to MHC for review?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
And I know they're very slow, at least.
Yes. They have been.
Yeah. Any idea timeframe about when you might get some comments back?
No, I think we'll give them a little time and then follow up with a query about it. Not to push them too fast. I know, they're very slow with National Register nominations, and, I'm forever getting messages in one form or another that, it's going to take them time to get to it. I don't know even about getting through it, but getting to it. But we can nudge it along.
Can I ask, is it helpful with them for us to line up, letters of support from local people who know what they're talking about, say?
Did you compile that letter of support that Betsy requested?
I'm working on that. We have our meeting next week at the Ruggles Center, and I want them to sign on and have our Lisa and Marie sign it and have it be something that we're all on board with.
Martha, I don't know if you know or not, but Betsy, when I sent it in, she requested that it would be good to have a letter of support from all the various groups that have been involved and want to see this happen. So, that would be a good next step, and follow up. We can follow up from there.
Including the commission, I'm assuming.
Yeah, sure. And in fact, the commission, could very well have more leverage in getting them along than we would.
All right, great. So Sarah, would you be willing to draft something? And I'm happy to review it and a letter of support.
Sure.
For the application.
No, definitely.
Okay, great. I mean, I know MHC has a very good track record with nominations that they do finalize and go to, for approval to Washington. So that's all good. So sometimes I guess it's worth the time that they take, even though it seems like a century sometimes, but okay, great. Anybody have any other comments or questions? We do have a couple more things we need to talk about before the 7 o'clock hour tonight. We appreciate so much all the work you've done on this. It's so meaningful to the community and meaningful to us. And
does our support require a formal vote or not? Would a formal vote help?
Were you asking me?
I don't think it's strictly necessary.
I don't think it's
convey
critical.
The commission supports it.
Okay.
Niels and Kathy, when Mass Historic gets in touch with you about the property owner lists and mailings and things that you need, you can get in touch with me at that point, and I can provide all those things for you.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be a ways off though. The next step, I mean, once they assimilate all this material and we get down to working through issues with designating a district there, we'll then be asked to draft an actual National Register nomination form. What we sent them was an area form for their survey. It's all in there, but we would have to recast it, however it comes out from their review in a National Register nomination form. And then, you would need to go through the public notification process. And I would imagine, as I said before, until we get some substantive feedback from them, it's still a very draft in its in its present state.
Great. Well, again, thank you so much
Thank
for all your
you.
hard work.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. We had a good time.
We did.
That's always the most important
We have
part, in my
to get
opinion.
Steve to find us something else to do so we can get back to Northampton.
Oh, I've got
Oh,
one.
well.
I want to have the Ross Homestead. be
Always,
the
he
historic
always
landmark.
has something else.
Okay, I won't grind that axe.
Okay,
All
great.
right.
Well, thank you.
Nice talking with you all.
All right.
Good night.
Good night.
All right, we have one other item, which I hope will be quick. This 106 review for the Mount Tom Road shared use path. This was submitted with our materials for the commission. Is there someone here representing? No. Okay. Oh. Yes, okay. We also have the Historic District Guide. Sarah, is either one of those more important than the other? Because we have very little time left.
Probably just a check-in about the historic district guidelines at this point.
Okay.
In section 106 can wait.
All right, just the one question I had about the Mount Tom path, and we can look at that in February if it's not too late.
That's fine.
I just didn't understand the impact on historic resources. That wasn't very clearly presented. So I don't know whether I didn't get it, but it wasn't really clearly presented to me that what, other than the the natural resources it was going through, and I'm sure there's probably maybe impact on Native American. I have no idea. It didn't seem clear to me.
Yeah, I passed along exactly what was sent by the
Okay.
the Mass DOT designer, but we could certainly ask for more information, and especially if anyone has anything specific.
Okay.
Because it also, I mean, I don't know whether it should have, but it didn't mention that any kind of surveys were done or were planned as part of the process to see if there were any, say, archaeological things.
Right.
It also seems odd where they're ending it, but I think they're going to be bike lanes on Pleasant Street that maybe then you just go merge into them. I was thinking, why not take this all the way downtown? But I think it kind of, after that rotary, there are bike paths or something. I hope
Yeah,
it.
so
I hope it doesn't
filed
just stop for a
the
while.
portion of the project that they're doing.
Okay, it's just the part they're dealing with. Yeah, I got it. Okay, so that's why we're being asked to look for it. They're not dealing with the connectors. So, okay, well, we can look at that in more depth at the next meeting, but I think it is important that we look at the design guidelines changes. And I know, Steve, you had made some suggestions. You want to talk about those a little bit?
Sure. And just briefly on the last item, I would agree with you, Martha. There's no analysis. It's just a project description. So something about potential effect would be
A bad description.
necessary
Oh.
for it to be a section 106 review. It's just a project statement right now. With respect to the suggested changes, I think they will help both the applicant and the commission by putting in writing some of the things that have come up in the last few months in our conversations about, for instance, the Secretary of Interior's standards, and describing that that's the best practices, so to speak, used across the United States, in Massachusetts and in Northampton. So, but then I think, I also included a reference to the preservation briefs. Those have really detailed guidance on some of the issues that have come up even in the last few months, and can be a resource for applicants before they come before the commission. So that was the spirit of the suggested edits.
Yeah, I think those are both really important. And my contribution was more about the solar panels, because I worked on these guidelines, felt like a century ago, and solar panels were just beginning to come into play. And the guidelines were very arbitrary. So I think it's important to, bring those up to date. And we've attempted to do this here. And I think the language is great.
Yeah,
So,
I think both of these are great additions and changes. And there was one typographical error in that solar panel thing in the first paragraph. the word sustainable Northampton plan.
Yeah,
was
I got
spelled.
that. Jonathan snagged that one as well.
Oh, okay. But I looked at the difference, if this is replacing what's in the current guidelines. And I don't know whether it needs to be here, but I don't think in this new language, there was a mention of matching roof slope. So that people aren't like angling up, which is actually very unattractive on a historic property. I understand that if you're going to do solar panels, you want it to be at the right angle, but I don't know whether we should add language back to say that the slope should match, the slope of the panel should match the slope of the roof, which I think is in the existing ones. I noticed that wasn't there. So
I can definitely get some language for that.
I think it's
Some of these were really, really long, and I was trying to parse it down to what really made sense, but there definitely were some good examples of roof slope.
And the other thing, because I haven't looked at those guidelines for a long time, in the demolition or removal section, I think it's page 24, I wrote down here, the second bullet point says that we do need to approve what will replace a demolished structure, that's part of our deliberation, but that presumably is when something's proposed for demolition in the district.
Yeah.
Which is obviously different from our demolition review ordinance, where we're not supposed to take that into account.
Yes. So this is specific to the local historic district and does not go beyond those borders.
And it's not something that we could lobby or try in the future to get to extend, so that we are taking into account what.
Excuse me, but I don't know that that's permissible by state law. Is that Sarah?
Okay.
I'm not sure. I think we would have to look into that.
Because the Central District Architecture Committee approves a new structure. I mean, it's this funny thing about us having different standards for both demolition in the district and what the Central Architecture Committee, their role in approving or not approving demolition, the standards are completely different. And it's very confusing, I think, to the public. I think it's confusing to the members of both committees. And then all of a sudden in this district, which I didn't even realize, because I guess demolition has never been requested, that we really have to make sure that we approve what's going to be built, plus the guarantee that something will replace it, and it isn't just going to become a parking lot or whatever. So I feel like, maybe at this point I wouldn't want to change this, because I like the idea that if there were going to be something demolished in the district, we would have some purview over what might replace it. But I think it's a discussion we could have in the future about how do we make this more consistent across various districts in the city.
So we couldn't simply expand what's in the local historic district guidelines and ordinance to apply citywide, but we certainly could have a discussion about other potential tools, and that will be coming up during the historic preservation plan discussion.
I was wondering if that would happen then. Yeah.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, just on that note, when we renovated our house, so this is back in 2006, we would have been getting approval, but we are part of the district, obviously. We demolished half the house, and it did have to go through Historic District Commission review. So they weighed in, I'll just say that. So that did happen. That's maybe the one time, I don't know, but it happened. And then the only other thing, Sarah, this is maybe more of a question regarding to the solar panels, because this technology is developing and changing. It may be that in 5 years, I don't know, that there's some other kind of application that's out there that we would need to consider how it gets folded in. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely.
So I would just want to be able to be sure that we had that flexibility, which I
tried to keep this really broad so that it would capture some of the changing technology, but if you have any specific suggestions, then I'd be happy to.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good. I think it's good the way it is. I think we just we need to keep an open mind about it. That's all. So, and hopefully, if we have to make changes in the future, I think we should stay on top of it.
Yeah, I think that what I tried to capture here was that the bottom line is that anything that's being proposed shouldn't be replacing historic materials and should be reversible, which I think is really the standard that the Historic Commission was looking at. when you review that first application for solar rather than what was actually in the guidelines.
Yeah, okay. All right, great. Any other thoughts about this? Anybody? It's 7, trying to end these meetings on time. All right, well, if we don't, nobody has another, we'll be meeting again at the end of the month. Oh, no, right, Sarah, or not?
Yes, we will.
Okay. So we'll be meeting again at the end of the month. That's the 24th, 31st. And there's nothing else. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Oh, happily. Move.
I know, Jonathan, you like timely adjournments, which is great. I do too. We're all busy. All right. Any second it?
I'll second.
Okay. And can we vote by hand?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. Great.
Thanks so much, everyone. Happy New Year.
Have a great month.
I'll raise my
See you
hand.
all. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
See you next time.